In the Warcraft universe, time works in a strange and confusing way. Whether this is by design or whether this was just the rule of cool taking place, it doesn't really matter, as this is the story that we have now. Alternate timelines have been popular in the media for a while now, especially now that the Marvel and DC movies are tackling the topic, which was already tackled before in the comic books, but we also see this topic in shows like Rick and Morty. The concept of infinite alternate universes within a huge multiverse is ever present in the stories of today. Thus, it is no surprise that it's present in the Warcraft series as well. The RTS games didn't really tackle the subject at all, but that would change later in World of Warcraft with the mysterious Caverns of Time and the Bronze Dragonflight, and of course their counterparts, the Infinite Dragonflight. Bronze dragons are responsible for keeping the time ways. The Infinite Dragonflight is essentially an evil version of the Bronze Dragonflight, consisting of corrupted bronze dragons who want to tear it all apart for yet unknown reasons. Most notable of these infinite dragons is Kairos Dormu, who you may know from Mists of Pandaria and later in Warlords of Draenor, and of course Murozond, who's actually the leader of the Bronze Dragonflight, Nosdormu, just far in the future. How time works in WoW is never really explicitly stated, it's just hinted at here and there in the game and in a few books. The most information we have about it comes from the Titans, actually, as most of this information is told through the book Chronicle Volume 3, and it's been confirmed that the Chronicle books are written from the point of view of the Titans. I say this because their interpretations of how it all works could be wrong, however they are the beings of order and bronze dragonflights are bent on keeping the order in the timeways, so if any cosmological power was to be connected with time, I would say that it would be order, and by that logic, the Titans. So let's get into the gist of things. If you're following Rick and Morty, Marvel or DC, you would know that in those stories the multiverse is an expansive place where there are infinite universes. Each of these infinite universes is as valid as the next one. There is no one true universe, even though we may follow characters from one specific universe, like how in Rick and Morty we are following Rick Sanchez C-137. In World of Warcraft, alternate timelines work in a little different way. The first major thing about the time mechanics in World of Warcraft is that there is one main timeline. This is the timeline where our characters and the stories we follow reside. The timeline where Sargeras is on a rampage to stop the Burning Legion, where orcs fought the Draenei on Draenor, where the Horde invaded Azeroth, and all the good stuff from the RTS games and WoW expansions happened. This one timeline is special because all the things that happened in it actually happened. That sentence will make more sense in a second. Allow me to explain. So, according to the Titans, what has happened and can never ever be changed. It's etched in stone forever, essentially, though this is not always true and I will explain why later. However, there are always different choices and different possibilities that can spin off, which in their words will ebb and flow for a while. However, if these different possibilities, these different timelines, are left alone on their own, they will eventually dissipate. They will just be echoes that will exist in the universe for a while, and then they will just fade out into infinity. This happens, but it's not a cause for concern as it's commonplace. Well, that is, unless one condition is obliged. The only way for these choices and different things to become a reality is if there's some effort put into preserving them, or if they're altered in any significant way. If someone from the main timeline was to mess around with a place from a different timeline too much, well then that place from that different timeline would not just echo away, but it would stay as a sort of a pocket dimension. Does any of this sound familiar? Well, it should, because that's essentially the plot of Warlords of Draenor. Kairos Dormu freed Garrosh, and together they went into an alternate timeline of Draenor, an echo of what could have been the original Draenor, with some slight differences like Garrosh not ever being born and such. This reality would have dissipated into nothing, however Garrosh is from the main timeline, and while he's there, that alternate timeline cannot just dissipate. Later on, the timeline got linked with Azeroth, which further altered it and preserved it as a part of reality. This is why even after the worlds got unlinked sometime after Warlords of Draenor and 30 years passed on the alternate timeline side, it still exists. It didn't disappear into nothing, because we left our mark there. We interacted with the people of alternate Draenor, we made buildings there, we even fought a war there. This is beyond just simple altering, which is why the alternate Draenor is part of reality now, and especially because a lot of inhabitants of alternate Draenor make their home in the main timeline now. If you've been paying attention to what I was saying earlier, you would remember that I mentioned that the altered place from the alternate timeline that was supposed to dissipate would become a sort of a pocket dimension if interfered with. This is true. There is no alternate universe where Draenor resides. There is only alternate Draenor. So no alternate universes, only one alternate Draenor, which is a pocket dimension. There's nothing beyond it. There's no Legion except for what we see in the alternate Draenor. Alternate Manoroth, for example, does exist because he's part of the Pocket Dimensions events. However, there is no real alternate Archimonde or alternate Kil'jaeden. There's a toy that shows their message, and that message does exist, but beyond the celestial borders of alternate Draenor, there is nothing there. Only those that are actually on alternate Draenor, they do exist. They have their histories and everything. They remember things that they remember. Those memories are real, but those memories didn't really ever happen. They just exist in their minds. Gul'dan probably remembers talking to alternate Kil'jaeden, but it's important to remember that alternate Kil'jaeden does not exist. But his conversation with Gul'dan does exist. In Gul'dan's mind, of course. Everything beyond alternate Draenor is an echo, and thus it's not part of reality unless interfered with. This is important to say because at the end of Warlords of Draenor we fight with Archimonde, who is confirmed to be the same Archimonde that was fought on the main timeline on Mount Hyjal at the end of the Third War. This is not some alternate Archimonde. The reason why there is an alternate Velen is because he was on alternate Draenor when we came and altered the echo of this Draenor. He does exist, his memories of Argus do exist, but alternate Argus itself does not exist. It's all one pocket dimension that is now tied to reality and exists somewhere outside of reality as a bubble that's very real but not infinite. Same goes for Azeroth. There is no alternate Azeroth, as it's not within the scope of the altering we made at alternate Draenor. Though one could argue that Garrosh switching the course of a clash between alternate Horde and alternate Alliance didn't make the echo of alternate Azeroth fade out, but that's speculation for some other time. The reason we see Archimonde in this timeline is because he took an opportunity to get here and use Gul'dan to summon the Legion in the main timeline, which was successful, as we all know. As we are in the expansion pack that explores the afterlives in the Warcraft universe, we should be taking a look at how the alternate versions of the characters end up in an afterlife, or even if that's the case at all. For example, we got the main timeline Gul'dan, who dies during the second war in the main timeline, but we also got the new alternate timeline Gul'dan, who became a part of reality ever since we altered his homeworld. Now it's certain that Gul'dan probably went into the Maw, considering he's pretty much done more terrible stuff than a lot of Warcraft's villains, but now that they're both dead, does that mean that there are two Gul'dans in the Shadowlands? Well, not exactly. Luckily, this is one of the rare things that was explained nicely by a writer, and none other than Steve the Noozer. He says that the souls in the Shadowlands should be looked upon as a rope. If you look closely at the rope, you will see that it's made from threads formed together. This is basically how you would look at a soul such as Gul'dan. There is one Gul'dan in the Shadowlands, however he is formed of the threads made from the souls of both main and alternate Draenor Gul'dans. What he did not specify, however, is what happens to characters like Overlord Gaia, who never existed in the main timeline. It could be that her thread would be linked with Thrall, as they both got the same parents, but for now this is unconfirmed and will remain a mystery. So you may remember that earlier I said that what has happened in the main timeline cannot ever be changed. This was not fully true, however. The Bronze Dragonflight and the Infinite Dragonflight by that same token have the ability to change the events in the main timeline. For most of the time this is the sole purpose of the Infinite Dragonflight. That's why you do all those dungeons that take place in the past in the Caverns of Time. Some events in the main timeline are already slightly changed. There are some differences in the War of the Ancients and some differences in events that take place in the Caverns of Time, such as Escape from Durnhold Keep or Culling of Stratholme. These are the only cases that the main timeline can be altered. Other than that, it's really etched in stone. Thanks for watching another lore video. I hope it clears some stuff up about probably the most complicated part of World of Warcraft's lore. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comment section below. If you want to join my Discord, you can do so by following the invite link in the description below, and if you want to see more videos like this, feel free to subscribe. This has been me, and now I'm out. Peace.